So the black hole behind me is a puncture wound from the sun. So there's a reason why there are the puncture wounds in the philosophy that's called the Way of the Six Wounds. It's a warrior philosophy. So being crowned with thorns creates holes in the organism at the place of the head, and the soul escapes through those holes. And then upon redemption, you can understand why those holes are necessary for aeration. Like when you have thoughts and your head gets overheated because of how pissed off you are at that person that you're thinking about. So the puncture wounds, when crowned with thorns, it creates holes in the organism. And so it has yet to be determined how those holes are made. In some way, it's through some sort of interaggregate structure or scaffolding in between the aggregates. Somewhere there are puncture wounds, because is it in the skin? Is it on the consciousness itself? Those questions have yet to be given some sort of answer or exposition. So talking about the sun's black hole, deeply existential thoughts actually have a neurological foundation. And the more genuine and authentic certain existential thoughts are, the more the thinker experiences the effects in the nervous system. So if you're about to go on stage or something like that, or you're going to go and do something that's making you nervous, you're about to actually do something. Now, if you're just like sitting around or something like that, and you start to experience nervousness and fear, this is going to be the signs of things like anxiety problems and stuff like that, when it doesn't have an explanation. If you just experience this inexplicable fear or anxiety or something like that. So in the Pali Canon of Theravada Buddhism, there's a sutra, Sutta 4, in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's called Fear and Dread. So talking about feelings of dread, the more realistic certain existential thoughts are, the more the agent experiences it as a real neurological, it has a neurological foundation. So when the thinker is so able to see deeply enough into the problems of the mind to develop a philosophic insight, a kind of philosophic vision to the modeling of the mind, to see it modeled and to see the processes, like looking under the hood of a car and seeing the processes. So the adept who's going to reach deliverance, he has to be able to see it. You have to see it. Knowledge is vision. So when the agent is able to think genuine and authentic thoughts that are deeply existential. The agent also might be able to then experience other things like the hell state in the yoga philosophy that I explain. Mental anguish can be experienced by a person if they're able to actually come to grips with what the mind is and how it's operating the way that it is, giving rise to your history leading up to who you are now. So the neurologic foundation, this is going to be when you confront the essence of your most basic problems. These mental problems that lead to different problems that might be social or that create hostility or insecurity or neurosis. When you are able to actually develop an insight into the mind and to see it, and when you're able to think these genuine and authentic existential thoughts, which then produce fear and dread and maybe even mental anguish, that is going to be at the neurologic foundation of those thoughts. This is where you experience the most basic threads of your anxiety. If you experience obsessive compulsive, for instance, you'll be able to actually be with and abide with a very basic neurological thread that produces the anxiety of your obsessive compulsive tendency. And so talking about how a person becomes so poised to get a grip on their mind and experience fear and dread, which then give rise to states of knowledge in the Buddhist discipline. So fear and dread, they precede the arising of knowledge. So a person must abide with this fear and dread. And well, the Buddha says to focus on the breathing, focus on your breath, because if you focus on your breath, you'll be able to persevere through states of dread. That's one thing that the Buddha says about the benefits of focusing on your breathing. So states of dread actually precede the arising of knowledge. For instance, the arising of knowledge that everybody is experiencing the consequences of volition. This would be a variation of the second knowledge, which is to see beings arising and passing away according to their deeds. Well, immediately prior to the vision of that knowledge is dread. And so dread is going to be, it's a very refined experience. I don't think everybody experiences dread in their lives. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. It's a really refined experience. And so now we can address the connection here between study and the development of being able to experience this neurologic foundation correspondent to some of your most basic problems. Study is important because we have to develop some sort of conceptual familiarity with the mind. And this is going to get into discussing that we invent the mind in order to solve the problems of it. There is a leeway of what the mind can look like when you model it. So because there is that leeway, we need to train ourselves in the conceptual development. So terms and definitions and meditating on things like a priori, so that we can become able to model it, so that we can have an insight into it. See? And so that's the importance of studying early on, beginning when you're like 18, and you study for several years, maybe till you're like 25. And then by that time then, you can move into a different aspect of the discipline, one that is more stipulated on action. And then you have the ability to develop an insight into the consequences of your actions. So this is what I call cognitive sensitivities that we have to develop, which enable us to experience the bare threads in the nervous system of our most fundamental problems. There is a thread of neurologic experience. Okay, so think about your muscles. Your muscles are made up of all these threads. I mean, your muscles look like pasta noodles. Just a bunch of pasta noodles. And so there are these threads, like keys, playing a key. You need to play this key, and you need to play it out completely. Like bleeding out an illness. You need to play it. See? And if you can isolate it and play it fully, just one time, it could completely eliminate the problem. So the keys to the kingdom. The keys are played. So the model that I'm given here is these threads in the nervous system. They're like piano keys. And you have to play them in order to alleviate or relieve your organism of your symptoms. You have to address the underlying problem. And so the feelings that come with expressing these keys, these notes, these feelings can be terrifying. They can actually be terrifying. It's possible to know your moral condition, and you're going to, on the path that leads to arhatship, you're going to have to be with the fundamental possibility of rebirth. In order to eliminate the karma that's going to precipitously induct you into your next life. So it is possible through a kind of tunnel in your nervous system that you can be aware of. In Buddhist philosophy of mind, they have different words. There's bhavanga. I'm not sure exactly how it would be pronounced. But the possibility of your rebirth elsewhere. And the reason you have possibility of rebirth elsewhere is because of karma. If you didn't have karma, there wouldn't be any possibility of rebirth. So when you talk about eliminating these fundamental problems of the mind through cognitive sensitivities and the endurance of dreadful neurological states of dread and possibly even anguish if you have access to the hell state, one must eliminate their karma. You destroy it. You destroy your previous karma through asceticism. By being conscious of what allowed for the development of these problems. So this is now insight into memories and things like that. Previous existence. So when you were 16, you did X. And then when you're 24, you have problem Y. And remembering previous existences, this is one application of that. So when you start to eliminate the fundamental neurological threads which give rise to all of your problems, like obsessive compulsive disorder, or bipolar disorder or depression, there might be variance in where we locate the solutions to those. But when you undertake this, there's going to be insight into what caused it. See? And it's going to take also a kind of logic to be able to make the connections, to connect the dots. Because there actually isn't any analytical way to know that these are connected. You have to have the confidence to just directly see and know for yourself. That this causes that, this gives rise to that. Do you know that the anxiety behind your obsessive compulsive disorder is a social problem? Who did you wrong? Because now you're not honest and you're not open and you don't trust people.